Hey everyone, I'm Catherine from Research Rockstar, and today we're going to have another conversation for Research Rockstars. Today I'm actually going to continue a conversation we started last week, which is about one of the biggest problems we face in professional market research and customer insights work. So think about it for a second. What's the biggest problem you face? Well, for many of us, the biggest challenge we face is when our research gets ignored. It happens all too often. You spend weeks or months or many months creating a beautiful piece of research. Your methodology was solid, your data quality is solid, your reporting, your presentation is amazing, but the research still gets ignored. And the reason why this happens, well, there are a few reasons why it happens, but ultimately it boils down to a couple of things. The client didn't understand the research, or they didn't trust the research. Because if they really understand the research results and they really trust the research results, they'll probably take action. But getting them to truly understand the research and to trust the research does take some proactive steps. So what we want to make sure is that we do our job, that we are proactive about mitigating those risks that could prevent people from using our research. We can't just deliver a research report and say our job is done. The ultimate way that the success of our work gets judged by a client, and for some of you that might be an internal client, or for some of you it might be an external client, but the ultimate success of a project depends on perceived return on investment. And if they've just spent a lot of money or a lot of time waiting for research results and they don't use it, well, that casts a negative halo both on that research project, but also on research in general, on insights in general, and perhaps even on the specific researcher. So it behooves us to make sure that people do use our research. So there are three specific solutions that I encourage you to try in your own projects to really help to mitigate this risk. Last week we talked about one of them, which was about speaking the client's language. We do have a tendency in research to use some research jargon, and we don't even realize it's jargon, right? Because we're so immersed in it. But there are a lot of words that we use that really don't connect well with our business executive clients. And so last week we talked about how we can speak the client's language so that they'll understand the research. It'll be more relatable to them. Today I'm going to talk about using multiple data points. Instead of relying on one data source or one source of creating our data, we want to have multiple data points from multiple sources. And that's going to boost their confidence in our data. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. And then next week we'll talk about part 3, which is about steps we can take to make it really easy for people to apply the research results. So there are some very practical tactics there that you can also use. So let's talk about Edward Snowden. Does everybody know who Edward Snowden is? Pretty controversial figure. Why did he get so much attention? Was it his topic? Was it because he leaked documents about controversial government activities? Well, the topic was certainly an interesting topic for many people, but I would say that the reason why he got so much attention was he didn't just leak one government memo. He didn't just leak two government memos. He didn't just leak 10 documents. He leaked millions of pages of documents, and that got a lot of attention. It was hard to ignore him. So, love him or hate him, I think Edward Snowden has a really important lesson for us. If we really want to get people's attention, it's great to have multiple data points. Don't just come at people with one data point. Make sure you've got a lot of data points, a lot of sources. That's what's going to get people's attention, especially if what we're talking about, the research results, are in any way controversial or contrary to what the client expected. For example, I've done a lot of product concept testing work. And when a company comes and they say, hey, we want to do some research to figure out either how to optimize this new product or to make sure we understand how to sell it or position it effectively, that's really great. But at that point, they've already got a vested interest in that product. So if I come back to them with research that shows a lot of challenges or a lot of issues with potential demand for the product, people can be very defensive. They will even often try to discredit the research. Well, this research must be wrong because this product is going to be amazing. It's going to sell millions and millions of units. And people get very emotionally attached, right? So when I do a research study and I have to tell them some bad news, I'm basically telling them that their baby is ugly. And nobody wants to be told their baby is ugly. That's really hard to hear. So I need to do everything I can in order to make sure that they're hearing what I'm saying in a very objective way, and so that I can show them that the research is not just an anomaly. It is really reflective of a broader theme or trend or reality in their product category or with their target customers. So let's talk about how we as researchers can use multiple data points to beef up our research results. Our goal is to get people to trust our data. If they trust the data, they're more likely to use it. The brutal reality is a lot of research reports use a single source of data. We do a survey project, we write a report. We do a set of online focus groups, we write a report. We do some ethnographic research, we write a report. And that's something we need to move away from. This is a huge issue for us in this profession. We have to stop thinking one methodology, one report. What we want to do is focus more on what the actual goal is for the client. So how do we do this? Well, let's take this first hypothetical mini case study. Let's imagine that you have a client that sells products related to cleaning tile floors. And they really want to understand customer needs for cleaning floors. They're really trying to discover customer needs because maybe this is to inform either messaging for an existing product, or maybe they're looking to inform a product roadmap process. They're trying to understand, priorities for future products. Fantastic. Well, maybe your primary research method was in-home interviews. That's a great methodology for this topic, right? Because if we're asking people about something like cleaning tile floors, it's going to be great if we can have them actually doing that while we interview them. So rather than send them a survey and maybe it's been a week since they cleaned their tile floors and expecting them to recall all of the aggravations that they may have experienced or the steps they took, let's be there when they're doing the task. That's where we're going to make sure we didn't miss anything, and we're more likely to get those aha examples of the specific challenges people have when they are cleaning tile floors. So the in-home interviews is a wonderful methodology. But maybe some of our results are pointing to broader issues with consumer trends, other products they use, maybe even demographic associations that could be interesting. Well, in a case like this, if we can augment that in-home interview research with some additional data sources, it's going to make our research more trustworthy. So where might I go in a case like that? Well, in a case like floor cleaning products, I happen to know that there's a lot of secondary data out there. So I can go to a website like marketresearch.com or statista.com. And these are wonderful websites that have aggregated tons of data sources on many different product categories. And so I can go to one of these websites and literally look for existing secondary research reports on floor cleaning. And maybe I can look at market share data or historical growth or expected forecasts for that category. Sometimes these secondary research reports will have some really interesting tidbits that I can leverage. Or maybe when I did the in-home interviews, what I found was that a lot of people were not even using official tile floor cleaning products. Maybe they're using a lot of substitute products. Cool. Well, then in the secondary data, I might want to look at some of those substitute product categories as well. What are those trends? Is there something there that I can leverage that speaks to what might be driving demand for those other categories? Is there something else there that we can leverage to support the conclusions that to inform the conclusions that we want to draw from our in-home interviews? So this is definitely a case where, it's a product category where certainly there's going to be existing reports and secondary sources that I can weave in to provide either context or to inform the conclusions that I'm drawing. Let's take a look at another example. Maybe you work for a company that sells computer software, maybe collaboration software for businesses. And that one of the things that's important is encouraging telecommuting, because maybe for this particular product category, that the best customers are organizations that have a lot of telecommuters. So you want to encourage telecommuting, right? So that's something that you might want to do. And you want to inform marketing messages that will then be used to promote telecommuting to people who own businesses. Fantastic. So I want to do some research to inform marketing messages that encourages business owners to support telecommuting. Well, maybe I did an online survey for that. That could be a perfectly valid thing for me to do. Maybe I did an online survey of business owners, maybe small, medium business owners, to find out how they currently feel about telecommuting. Are there some positives that can be leveraged? Are there some negative attitudes we might want to educate them about to try to persuade them? So an online survey could be a totally legitimate way of doing this research. But maybe I can also augment that with other data that helps to provide important context. Well, if I'm talking about telecommuting, maybe there's some cool additional data I can get my hands on that relates to commuting trends, and maybe that can be useful. In fact, if you go over to the census website, census.gov, census.gov, if you've never used census data, there are a lot of tools that they give us to explore census data for free. And I just happen to know that there is some census data that's been tracked for years about commuting trends. So how much do people, what percent of the population commutes, how far they commute, etc. And they've got historical data, so there's some really interesting trends there. I can definitely see how having some data about commuting trends could help me to provide important context for putting forth messaging ideas about encouraging telecommuting, right? So, for example, if I'm seeing some of this secondary data from the census about just painfully long commutes, the challenges with commuting, fantastic. Maybe I can weave that into the marketing messages or supporting the marketing messages about telecommuting. So again, just a couple of really simple examples, but there's plenty of secondary data sources out there, some of which are quite affordable. There's free data sources like census data, and frankly, there are a lot of other organizations that just publish a lot of free data about consumer trends and even business to business trends. So anytime you can augment your primary methodology with data from other sources, again, that's going to make your data that much richer and much more credible. The other example I sometimes use is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. When the FDA is getting ready to approve a new drug, a new pharmaceutical, they don't just do one study, right? They don't do two studies. They usually do like 6 or 7 studies at least before they approve something. And again, whether or not you love or hate the FDA and their pharmaceutical approval process, certainly that idea is correct, right? I wouldn't want the FDA releasing a new drug for human consumption unless they've done multiple studies. Well, for some of our clients, they consider that the decisions that they're making are really important and are really important to the health of their business. So when we deliver a report, we want to step away from one survey, one report. We want to find ways to augment that survey results with additional data that either provides context or support for the key conclusions. So it's up to us, right? We do have this challenge of getting people to use our research. The onus is on us to do whatever we can to mitigate this risk. And the 3 things we can do are speaking the client's language, because that's going to make it more understandable, using multiple data points so they're more likely to trust the data, and next time we're going to talk about making it simple to apply the research. I hope you found that useful. If you're interested in these topics, Research Rockstar does have a couple of related courses. We have a course on secondary research, so if you want to get immersed in secondary research, we actually cover, I think, over 20 different sources of secondary research in that particular course, so that can be a great resource. Or consider perhaps our class on online qualitative methods, which covers a whole bunch of new methodologies. If I can be of any help, please contact me here or follow me on Twitter @ResearchRocks. Thanks, everybody.